In the world of AI, there is a massive shift happening for anyone in a technical role. It's not just about what you can build anymore, it's really about how you think. Today, we're going to unpack a whole new career identity that sits right at that sweet spot between business and tech, the forward deployed engineer, or FDE.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. This is the heart of the opportunity. There's this huge, massive gap between companies buying these powerful new AI tools and then actually, making them work in the real world. That gap is exactly where the FDE thrives, and it's why this role is becoming so incredibly important.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the old way of doing things and why it's really a dead end. Then, we'll dive into the fundamental mindset shift you need to make. We'll even see how it works using a simple analogy. After that, we'll explore the mental tools an FDE uses, and finally, show you why this path can make you pretty much indispensable.
Okay, so let's start by defining the problem, right? Why do we even need a new type of engineer in the first place? Well, it's because the traditional way of working is frankly breaking down. This slide really lays it all out. You've got two completely different worlds here. On the left, that's your typical software development engineer, the SDE. They're reactive. They wait for a ticket, for a spec to land in their inbox, and then they build it. But on the right, you have the FDE, who is completely proactive. They're sitting down with the client, asking questions, and figuring out the real problem before a single line of code is ever written.
And that reactive cycle on the left, well, that's what we call the engineer's trap. It might feel comfortable, but let me tell you, it's a dangerous place to be. When your entire job is just translating a spec into code without ever touching the why, you basically become a function. And unfortunately, functions are exactly what AI is getting scarily good at automating.
And that leads us to the absolute heart of what it means to be an FDE. This isn't about learning some hot new programming language or the latest framework. No, it is, first and foremost, a complete and fundamental shift in your mindset.
This new way of thinking really stands on two big pillars. First is a growth mindset, this core belief that you're not stuck with the skills you have, but that you can develop them with effort. And second is adaptability, the skill of just rolling with the punches, embracing change, because client needs always change.
So how do you actually do this? Well, it boils down to three core principles. First, you have to stop asking how to build something. Instead, you start asking why this is even a problem and what would actually solve it. Second, you aim for the absolute best, never settling for good enough. And third, you have to see yourself as a partner with the client, walking right alongside them, not leading them or just following orders from behind. And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures that old, broken way of thinking. So many of us do this. We fall in love with a cool new technology, a new tool, and then we go hunting for a problem to solve with it. The FDE mindset completely flips that on its head. You start with the problem, always, and only then do you figure out the solution.
Okay, so that's the theory. Let's make this super real and concrete. What does it actually look like to solve the real problem instead of just, checking a box on a request? Let's use a quick analogy.
So imagine this. I walk up to you and say, I'm hungry. You think for a second, and then hand me a hamburger. Simple enough, right? But have you really solved my problem? You might think so, but let's dig a little deeper. See, what you've done is you've provided a solution, the hamburger, but you totally skipped over understanding the context. The hamburger is the how, but my hunger is the why. A traditional engineer stops at the how. An FDE always starts with the why. Because, what if I'm a vegetarian? Uh-oh. Now, not only have you not solved my problem, you've actually ignored my real need. You delivered what you thought was a solution, but it was completely the wrong one for me, the user. And this kind of thing happens every single day when we build software without understanding the people we're building it for.
And that right there is the core function of the FDE. It's not just about building things right. It's about making damn sure you're building the right thing in the first place. It's about digging deep, understanding the context, finding that real need, and only then deciding what's actually worth the time and effort to build.
Now, this kind of thinking doesn't just happen by magic. It's not just a vibe. FDEs use actual structured mental models and frameworks to deal with all this complexity. So let's take a look at a couple of those right now.
One of the big ones is just knowing what kind of game you're playing. Are you making a small, incremental fix, like a simple bug patch, or are you focused on sustainable work, like cleaning up code for the long haul? Maybe the project is radical, bringing in a totally new piece of tech, or is it truly transformational, something that's going to completely change how the business runs? Knowing where you are on this map changes everything about your approach.
And all of this work is held up by these four foundational pillars. First, you've got to master the client interface, really understanding their world. Second, you take full product ownership, caring about the outcome, not just the feature. Third, you still need that deep engineering skill to actually build the thing. And finally, you have to build a tight feedback loop to measure if your solution actually worked. It makes you a powerful hybrid, part consultant, part product manager, and all expert engineer.
You know, a perfect way to think about this is the Moneyball analogy. The Oakland A's baseball team couldn't afford the big star players, so they used data to find undervalued players that everyone else was ignoring. FDEs do the exact same thing. They win by seeing and delivering value in ways that those traditional, siloed teams just can't see.
So, we've talked mindset, we've talked tools. What does this all mean for you and your career? Well, to put it simply, it's about becoming indispensable.
Let's just look at this head-to-head. Yeah, both roles write code. That's the baseline. But look at the big differences. The traditional SDE almost never talks to the client and doesn't own the business outcome. The FDE does both every single day. And that's why the AI threat is so different. Automating code writing is getting easier and easier. Automating client relationships and true problem ownership, that's really, really hard. You're building a career moat that AI just can't cross.
And look, the market gets it. The money follows the value. With about 5 years of experience, a traditional SDE might be making somewhere between 12 and 18 lakhs. But an FDE with that same level of experience, we're talking 38 to 65 lakhs. The value proposition is staring you right in the face. It is huge.
So at the end of the day, what is an FDE? They are so much more than just an engineer. They are embedded problem solvers. They jump right into the client's chaos, they untangle it, and they own the entire delivery chain from that first conversation all the way to a working solution. They become the single person you call to solve a business problem with technology.
And we'll leave you with this final thought. This journey to becoming an FDE isn't really about your technical aptitude. I mean, that's just the price of entry. It's all about your attitude. An attitude of endless curiosity, of real ownership, and a partnership. Because that is what will truly define how high you can fly.